Warning.
All right. Welcome. This is the Super Bowl Super Preview Show video chat with my girls, Vasti Hurt and Jennifer Eakins. Vasti covers the Carolina Panthers for Carolina Blitz, her own website, which is awesome. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. And my girl Jennifer, a long-time guest on this show. We're recording this for the podcast Back Talk with Sharona. She covers the Denver Broncos and is just a fantastic source for all things Denver Broncos, and I love her so much despite the fact that she is a Georgia fan and might be prone to bark during this, so we'll have to keep an eye on her. So we're going to go ahead and bring both of those ladies in. We'll start with Vasti, let her introduce herself to you, then we'll get Jennifer in here, and then we'll get going.
Hey, I'm Vasti Hurt. I'm so glad to be talking to Sharona. It's been way too long.
It has.
But yeah, I'm here in Charlotte. The excitement is off the charts, and we call it Charlotte now, CHARLIT, because it's lit here. And
okay,
you know, everybody's so excited. The Panthers have had an awesome season, and so I'm looking forward to Sunday. Looking forward to Super Bowl. Hoping that we have something to celebrate on Tuesday or Wednesday.
I can imagine. It was lit last Sunday night when I was there for the NFC Championship game. There were a lot of little bars and stuff around the stadium, and I was walking around. I took some vines, posted them on my Twitter page if you want to check those out. Definitely a great season for the Panthers, but really a pretty good season for your Denver Broncos too, Jennifer. Kind of drama-filled, but jump on in here, tell everybody who you are.
I'm excited to be back as usual with you, Sharona. And yeah, I'm excited. We're, the city is we're, second Super Bowl in 3 years, so it's a little different vibe around here. Obviously, people are excited. People are cautiously optimistic. Obviously, 2 years ago was pretty ugly. So I think around here, people aren't super hyped, and they're not planning the parade route just yet. But everyone's super excited. I think we're ready to get this going. It's been a long 2 weeks, as I'm sure it has in Charlotte, and we're ready to go.
We were talking about Super Bowl 48. I actually talked about it last night and Tuesday night. One of the funniest things, of course, if you know anything about the Denver Broncos history, you'll get this. One of the funniest things that I read was a comment, I think it was over at Deadspin, by a longtime Broncos fan, that after the very first play of the game, when the snap went sailing over Peyton Manning's head, he said, "Oh, it's one of those games."
Yep, I know. We were talking about that last night on the podcast that I did. We're like, as long as, the first snap is clean, then we're good. We're ready to go.
Yeah. Very much a drama-filled season for Peyton Manning. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks in some detail here in a minute, and also it's nauseating, but, we have to talk about it, the Cam Newton versus Peyton Manning debate narrative that some people seem to want to have. But I want to start with a little bit of a recap of the seasons. We'll start with you, AFC. We'll start with you, Jennifer. The Broncos, the quarterback situation. We've talked about this on the podcast, but let's go into it a little bit briefly. Somewhere around, week 8, it was not looking very good for the Broncos.
No, actually, honestly, it wasn't looking good from week 1. I mean, really, Peyton didn't look good from the start. I don't know if it was it's interesting. Around here, people are almost now of the narrative, it was kind of fortunate that he got hurt. It was a really good kind of break for him, not only physically but mentally. He had a rough start. Yeah. He was making really unPeyton-like decisions. Yeah. He was making really bad throws, and that little break. Brock Osweiler came in. The Broncos got to see who he is, what they're dealing with. He's been sitting on the bench for so long they didn't even really know who they had. So it was kind of a win-win. You know, they got to go in, see what he's made of. Peyton got to rest, you know, his foot, his arm, his mind, really get kind of right, come back in, and he looks like a different player now. And it's kind of interesting, you know, to kind of see. It was a weird season that nobody predicted, but, you know, they're here.
You and I talked about how uncomfortable he looked in Gary Kubiak's offense early on. With you, I thought the break was good for him as much mentally as anything else, because he seems like in his mind that he's accepted what this offense is, and Gary Kubiak seems like he's come a little bit more toward his position. Do you think that they've somehow come to a détente on their offensive philosophies?
I think so, and I think they both are aware that kind of this is it. I mean, this is the end of the line for Peyton. We know that. I mean, granted, he may decide to go one more year. There's always that, but you know, I think this is it, and I think they've both come to a nice little compromise. Like, look, they both have the same end goal, and let's just do it. You know, however it can get done. I mean, look at last week or 2 weeks ago. I mean, Peyton Manning ran 12 yards for a first down. I mean, that's insane. Like, that's, you know,
Peyton football.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy, and I think it's finally, you know, it's interesting though. I think even this week during the media and everything of Super Bowl week, he just seems more calm. He seems like a different Peyton, you know. He seems kind of like, okay, this is it. You know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He doesn't seem as high-strung, and as, you know, he seems really kind of chill and kind of a quiet confidence. It's kind of interesting to see.
He doesn't seem nearly as frustrated as he did at some points during the season. I completely agree with that. I want to ask you, it does seem like the running game has, I mean, it's not potent like we've seen in the past, but it seems like it's stabilized a little bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, the offensive line is definitely the weakest part of this team. There's no doubt about that. You know, no one's trying to hide that. The offensive line is not great, you know, but I think as the weeks have gone on, they've gotten a little better in the chemistry department, and they seem to be helping a little bit with the run. And, you know, at this point, I don't think we all know they're not, you know, the run game is not going to be spectacular. You know, C.J. Anderson's not going to have 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. It's just not going to happen. But if they can just be serviceable, you know, then they can, you know, potentially pull this off. And I think as the season went on, I mean, you know, the last couple of weeks, you know, during the playoffs, it was fine. You know what I mean? The run game was okay, you know, and I think that's really all that it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to get to the playoffs in a moment, but I want to bring Vasti in here, talk a little bit about the Panthers season. Much different from the Broncos, because they got rolling early on and were, I mean, they won what, help me out here, 11 or 12 games straight in a row, Vasti? Maybe 13.
I think it was, we didn't lose to Atlanta, and then there were maybe, what, 2 or 3 games after that. So
13 games.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they got rolling early on. But the interesting thing about that is that, and I keep saying this, but it's so true, it reminded me of the Titans 2008 season. Even though they were undefeated, they were rolling, they were playing extremely well, they were not getting the attention that they really deserved.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina to me has been fueled this entire season off of playing this whole underdog role, this us against the world role. And, you know, I think it's been good for them, because essentially we have a pretty young team. The core of our team and Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly on offense and defense, they're younger guys. And so, you know, we don't have Steve Smith from a couple of years ago to help motivate this team. And oftentimes, you know, younger cats, they're like, okay, well, they don't believe in us, so we're going to go out there and show them. And they've thrived off of that all season. I'm curious to see how they go into the Super Bowl, where it has totally flip-flopped. And now, you know, the Broncos kind of are in this, you would never think that a Peyton Manning team would be the underdog, but they're the underdogs, and now the Panthers are everybody's favorite. But it's just it's been a great season. The Panthers overcame adversity from the very start with the loss of Kelvin Benjamin. And so, you know, if anybody told you, if anybody said, "Oh, I knew the Panthers were gonna do this and go to the Super Bowl," they were lying. I mean, it's just been crazy, and it's been a great experience.
Yeah. Who are some of the young players that you feel like have stepped up? A guy that comes to my mind, and I wrote about him after the NFC Championship game, is Philly Brown, Corey. Philly Brown. Do you think that he stepped up, and who else among the younger players might have stepped up?
I think, I have a love-hate relationship with these wide receivers because,
I bet Jen can say the same thing about hers.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's like, okay, wow, these guys are really doing what they have to do, and then you have plays where they're wide open drops on, 3rd and 10, and I'm like, come on, y'all, let's just get it together. So, I've really been impressed with Kawan Short.
Yeah.
Nobody really expected him to come in this season and dominate the way that he has. And for him to be able to do that, now he's the anchor of this defensive line. I think that he is, he probably has been, the most improved player on this Carolina Panthers team. So when it comes to younger guys, he would get my nod.
Was there at some point during the season that you were like, yeah, we got this, this is going to happen, or were you holding your breath until the end of the NFC Championship game?
I am still holding my breath. I don't know whether it's the fact that I have a little bit of superstition in me, but I get nervous every game. And I mean, this is the NFL. We aren't talking about college, SEC, Alabama versus Utah State or something like that. This is the NFL. This is the best of the best. So on any given Sunday, a team could step up or a team could have a bad game. And the Panthers haven't quite been, letting fourth quarter leads go down. And I remember the original Cardiac Cats from their first Super Bowl in 2004. And this was like Cardiac Cats 2.0 with the game against Green Bay, the first Seattle game, the second Seattle game, the Giants game. So, no, never have I been like, okay, we got this. It's always been like, well, I hope we get through this game. And so far they've been getting through.
You've talked about Quan Short. What other players stood out for you this season, both good or bad?
Michael Orr. And you know what? I'm like, oh, God, they got blindside on the team. He's going to stink it up. And, he's been serviceable. I'm not going to say that he's just been knocking it out of the park. But that offensive line was one of my greatest concerns. They were the worst offensive line in football last year. We got rid of Byron Bell, praise the Lord, and we bought Michael Orr, and I was like, gosh, we're trading one bad guy for another, but he really impressed me this year. They've done a good job of protecting Cam Newton and giving him the time to make the plays that he needs to make. So I would say, as far as a shocker to me, it would be him. He's a better left tackle than he is a right tackle. I've always thought that, and they've moved him back to the left tackle position, and it has been a good move for him. It's a good story, I wrote about that at the beginning of the year. I talked about players to watch, and it was like, okay, is Michael Orr going to have this resurgence here at Carolina after having stops in Baltimore, of course, and then Tennessee, where everybody thought, okay, he's back in Tennessee, or he's in Tennessee, it's going to be a good thing. So, I mean, I think it's been good for him. Everybody else, I mean, Ginn is the most frustrating player on the Carolina Panthers team. It's like he will drop a wide open touchdown pass, and then 2 plays later, he makes a catch that is like, really? So those 2 guys, Michael Orr impressive, Ted Ginn, he's just so wishy-washy. It gets frustrating sometimes. But, I mean, all in all, I think that most of the guys, I can't say that there's been a guy on that team who has sucked, really. It's been, terrible. And very solid. Yeah, that's why they've only lost 1 game. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm going to get Jennifer in here and ask her the same question. I know she wants to talk about her wide receivers. And then I'm going to get you two to scout your enemy. Talk about
your observations of the enemy from the 2015 team, and then we'll turn to matchups and whatnot. Jennifer, who stood out for you, both good and bad, and what Vashti was saying about her wide receivers, you could say about the Broncos wide receivers too.
Yeah, 100%. I was shaking my head the whole time because it's the same exact thing. I mean, Demaryius Thomas just got this huge contract, and he had a pretty bad year. I mean, honestly, like crazy drops, wide open, like, it's like, and then he'll do some circus catch, 3 plays later, and you're like, well, and so at least
Emmanuel
with
Sanders too. I mean, kind of the same thing from him.
Yeah, he didn't have too many drops. I mean, he's always pretty, he's usually pretty solid, but it's interesting because some of the guys this year that kind of stepped up are not, the guys that aren't in the top. You've got Benny Fowler and Norwood, that kind of came out of nowhere and did all right. Then you have,
wasn't Norwood a Panther briefly?
I don't know that.
What's his first name? Yeah.
Jarius? No, it's Jarius.
Oh, okay. Kevin Norwood was a Panther, not.
Yeah.
Yeah, different.
I forget where Kevin Norwood went. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. So I was just saying, and then you've got, at the tight end position, Owen Daniels was somewhat of a disappointment. Of course, he had 2 touchdowns, against the Patriots, but for most of the season, he was somewhat of a disappointment. I think all the good, as far as the standouts for the season are on the defense.
Yeah.
Your boy Malik Jackson has been he's been amazing this year.
Yeah.
I
was kind of surprised that they extended Wolf before Malik Jackson. Do you think Malik Jackson's demands are a little bit pricey for them?
No, I think they're going to get it done with him. I think he's important, and I think they know that. I think the problem is the Broncos, and we can get into this another time, but their list of free agents is kind of insane, which is why this is kind of the year this year they kind of have to get it done because they're not going to have all these parts. But I do think Malik will get it done. I think it's interesting because in this defense you've got Wolf and Ware and Miller, and these guys get all the credit. But your boy Malik he's had a great season. And
he has.
Super solid. I think the safeties, T.J. Ward and Stewart has actually been a really big surprise. When they acquired Stewart, people around here were kind of like, he's mediocre safety. He's not really going to do anything. And he's been a really big surprise. He's been really solid. I think on the offensive line, there's not much to really, write home about, except for I think Matt Paradis, the center, he's been pretty good. And he's played every single snap this entire season, which is something to be said,
What do you think happened there? I mean, Luis Vasquez was really, really good last year. He kind of had a subpar year. I was shocked about that.
Yeah, and I think, Evan Mathis, I think people were pretty excited about getting him, and he really hasn't been impactful at all, And, of course, there's poor, Michael Schofield, who gets the brunt of the Twitter hate and the everything. I mean, he gets so much hate. And he's had a rough season. I mean, he really has. So, this offensive line, we knew going into the season was going to be a problem. And, they haven't been great. But they're in the Super Bowl, so, they're there. So, we'll see how they can hold up. They've got one more game to hold up, and we'll see if they can do it.
All right, scout your enemy. What stood out for you from the Panthers 2015 season? Give us your rundown on them.
I think, obviously, their offense, I think, was a surprise to most. I think once Benjamin went out, people kind of wrote that off, and I think – as Vashti was saying, a lot of their offense, their receivers kind of stepped up. Ted Ginn, I mean, he had the, career year. I mean, the guy's been kind of a joke traveling from team to team, and he had a great season. I think Cam, obviously, is Cam, and he's exceptional, so he's always a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Olsen is no joke either. So I think, I think their offense is more of a surprise, I think, to anybody. I think defensively... defensively they've had the players and the pieces, and I think people are not as surprised by that. But I'm definitely, as a fan, I'm more concerned on the offensive side of whether they're going to be able to contain Cam and in the run game. I mean, Jonathan Stewart, is now healthy, and he's a concern too, for sure.
Yeah. And you can't count out Mike Tolbert too, who we're going to talk about in a minute. He is one of my surprise guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Vashti, what about the Broncos?
You know,
Yeah.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about their defense going up against our offensive line. Where is that where Michael Orr matchup is something that I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about. And Von Miller has had his way. And so it's like, okay, is this offensive line going to be able to protect Cam enough to make plays? I think if they are, then the Panthers have a good shot of winning this game. So I am concerned. I think Cam Newton's passer rating drops 40 plus points when he's under pressure. So that's not a good thing. He does not make good decisions when he's under pressure. When he has the time to make the right decisions or decide whether he's going to run the ball or pass it, then he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. So that's what I'm concerned about. I think that usually most people would be concerned, oh, well, will the Panthers be able to have a shootout with the Broncos of years past? And yeah, now that the offense and Cam Newton have seemed to find their niche, yeah, I think that the Panthers could hang with them offensively. As far as points scored wise, I am concerned about that defense and how much pressure they're going to get on Cam Newton.
Yeah. Is completely ignoring the fact that an offensive scoring football team this past season, they have relied primarily on their defense to win football games, and they're scoring. The Panthers are scoring a lot more points on average per game, than the Broncos. But you can never count out Peyton Manning. That's why I want to ask you. I'm going to get both of you in here to talk about coaching and intangibles. One of the things that I've been saying about the Panthers, and I wonder if you agree or disagree, is that I think that Ron Rivera and Dave Gettleman don't get enough credit for the job that they have done assembling a football team that really is cohesive and has a great locker room atmosphere, great atmosphere on the sidelines. Do you agree with that?
I do. Gettleman came in and he shook ish up. He shook it up with getting rid of fan favorite, team favorite Steve Smith. And I'll say this until the end. I still think they should have done him better than what they did. But
yes, they did.
And everyone was mad. But I think it was a necessary evil, and I understand it now because Cam needed to be kind of thrust into that leadership role. Yeah. And with Steve Smith on the team, they're always going to look to him, to kind of be the leader. So I understand it now. So Gettleman has done a great job with managing the salary cap. I think Marty Herney also should get some credit because most of the guys on this team were from his era. He brought in Ron Rivera. He drafted Cam Newton. So, shouts out to him, but Gettleman has been able to fix the salary cap issues that the Panthers had, be able to keep these star players. And Ron Rivera, from everything that I've been hearing, he is a player's coach. He encourages his team. Like, the Panthers, you watch them and they seem like they're just having so much fun and they're carefree and they're just fun to watch. And he allows them to embrace that and say, we're on business, but have fun. And I think guys like to play for coaches that they like. And so I think that what they've done and what they've been able to create has been great in Carolina. And hopefully, like I said earlier, with the young team, it's something that they'll be able to sustain. I mean, prior to a couple of years ago, nobody won the NFC South 2 years in a row. And now the Panthers have done it 3 years in a row. So you have to give props to Ron Rivera and Gettleman for what they've done. And also Shula. Shula has been calling some, I was so very impressed with him in that game against Seattle. I think he kind of had a wake-up call. I'm sorry, I was impressed with him in the game against Arizona. I think he had a wake-up call against Seattle where he got kind of soft with his plays. But in the Arizona game, he was aggressive. his play calling was good. Cam Newton has said that Shula is the Panthers' secret weapon. So I think that I think the whole coaching staff and front office staff deserves props.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I like Ron Rivera. It's interesting that, 2 years ago people were calling for his head,
Oh
and now
yeah.
look, the Panthers are in the Super Bowl. And I agree also that they should have handled the Steve Smith situation differently. But he went on to have, a great year in Baltimore. His first season, of course, last season the injury was unfortunate. He's going to come back. We'll see how that turns out. Jennifer, you know how I feel about Gary Kubiak and his offense. Yet you cannot deny that what John Elway and certainly Wade Phillips have done with the Broncos in 2015 is pretty amazing.
It is. Before I go into that, I need to tell you something. You mentioned Shula, and I need to tell you, I actually grew up, the Shulas lived in my neighborhood.
Oh.
And as a preteen, I was like in love with Mike Shula. I followed him around my neighborhood. Seriously, me and my friend Missy used to follow him around on our bikes and like obsess over him. And it's so funny now to see him. I'm so happy he has all the success, and it's just hilarious because I was in love with him when I was like 13 years old. But anyway, I digress a bit. As far as the Broncos go, it's interesting because when Kubiak, obviously we had the whole John Fox. Jack Del Rio, it was such a mess when they left. It was so ugly, and I don't know if, the national, media or, know as much of kind of what went on here, and, that Super Bowl loss, and, everyone was just so bitter because Del Rio and Fox basically had one foot out the door. The team was not ready. No, they just didn't care. They really didn't care whether the team won or lost the Super Bowl because they were leaving, and it was really frustrating around here. So it was nice that they kind of brought in, at first people were a little concerned because it was kind of a homer move. Wade Phillips and, Kubiak were both homer moves, But it's what Elway, wanted and what he was comfortable with. And obviously it's worked out fantastically. He's worked with both of them before. And Wade Phillips, the transformation from this defense from one year to the next is incredible. Honestly, it's, and people were already throwing Wade out to pasture, and to come back in here and to create this defense was kind of remarkable. And I think Kubiak, at first people were a little skeptical of whether his offense would work here, and I think people are still skeptical of whether that's going to work. But at the same time, this team that they've put together, they went 12-4, and they're in the Super Bowl. And, I think it's, it's a testament to kind of, I don't know, that the Broncos family, everyone always talks about the Broncos family, but it truly is. And you've got it starts with Pat Bolin, the owner, who, unfortunately is battling Alzheimer's, and he's not really out in the public anymore. And he's an incredible owner. He's done a lot for not only this franchise, but for the NFL, and along the way. And so I think that's really the mentality around town is everyone wants to win it for Bolin and for Pat. So, I think it's interesting to kind of see in 1 year what these guys have done with this team, Kubiak and Phillips. And, I think it's a pretty interesting transformation, especially on the defensive side. With what kind of they were working with. And it wasn't – the interesting thing is that they didn't even bring in that many new components. It's just somehow what Phillips did in his system that just created, this #1 defense in the NFL,
Yeah, I was extremely skeptical of John Elway as a general manager. He was a fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but he has definitely proven me wrong. And Jennifer knows this. I am already starting the Peyton as the next John Elway, either as an athletic director or as a general manager. I don't think he's going to go into coaching. All right, let's turn to the big game. Time to talk matchups. But first, let's start with the playoffs. Just overall, Vasti, were there any surprises in this year's NFL playoffs for you?
Surprises in general?
Yes.
I think I expected the Patriots to beat the Broncos, honestly.
Yeah, I did too.
That was.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, everybody was geared up for a rematch, and fans here were, I was watching the game out here, and some fans didn't know whether they wanted to cheer for the Broncos because they hate the Patriots so much, or cheer the Patriots because they wanted to beat the Patriots so much. So it was a back and forth. But if I had to pick one shocker, I think that was a shocker. I didn't expect the Broncos to be in the Super Bowl, and I think it's great.
Actually did. I mean, I know it's crazy, but I just, looking at the matchups, I knew that if they could get to Brady, they'd be able to win, because the Patriots didn't really have a run game. They just didn't, and they didn't even pretend to. You know what I mean? So I knew that if they could get to Brady and kind of confuse him, in which they did. I think I was actually surprised at the way the Panthers beat the Cardinals. I really was.
Yeah.
I thought they would win. Don't get me wrong. I did. I thought the Panthers would be in the Super Bowl, but I didn't think they just shellac the Cardinals like they did. I really didn't see that.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised how poorly the Cardinals played. I was.
I wasn't. The Cardinals, to me, they've just been the Panthers beat them last year when they came in and they had, a great record. And so I don't know. To me, the Cardinals do so well during the regular season. They're all hype. And then for some reason, I don't buy them as a dangerous playoff team. But I was nervous because I'm nervous for every game. But
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the big game. Vashti, injury updates, what's going on with Thomas Davis, Ryan Khalil, Roman Harper, Mike Talbert, some of the other guys who had some injuries.
From what I understand, everyone is going to play, of course. Jared Allen, who sat out the game against the Cardinals and was very pissed about it, he plans on playing. Thomas Davis, listen, everybody is shocked. Oh, my gosh, he's playing with a broken arm. Thomas Davis has recovered from 3 ACL surgeries, and I think they were all either 2 or all 3 were on the same knee. So this guy his story is an incredible one of perseverance and determination. So it's not shocking that, this is going to be, he's going to play in this game. Tolbert, I mean, the running backs are all, from what I understand, everybody is ready to play other than the players who've been placed on IR. So
right. Jared Allen going to play?
Yes. The last report I heard, Jared Allen will be playing.
Awesome. All right, Jennifer, injury update for the Broncos. Obviously, the biggest concern is Chris Harris. What's up with him?
Similar to what Vashti just said, everybody's going to play, from what I've heard. Chris Harris's shoulder is coming around. He's going to play. The biggest concern, TJ Ward and Stewart, the 2 safeties, are both hurt. From what I've heard, they've both been practicing. They're both going to play. I think TJ Ward is more ready than Stewart, so I would say Stewart is the most hurt of everybody, but he's going to go. Brandon Marshall, has a little bit of an injury, but he's going to go. Actually, Peyton Manning is listed on the injury report. Obviously, he's going to go. I think everybody's good to go. I think the most hurt, like you said, Chris Harris's shoulder, but he played against the Patriots and he did fine. It's the Super Bowl. Everyone's going to go. You know that. And like you said with Thomas Davis, it's not like he's not going to play. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. You go,
Did you guys pay attention to Media Week and all the interviews and stuff? Jennifer, did you catch a lot of that?
I did a little bit, not a lot. I catch them mostly on the radio. When they replay them, kind of back here. So I caught a lot of the Peyton stuff and the Von Miller stuff and the Aqib Talib stuff. I mean, nothing that was too crazy out of the ordinary. I know this morning actually, right. Snoop Dogg was apparently interviewing Peyton Manning this morning. He asked him if he could get 50% off Papa John's when he comes to Denver. That was his question.
Snoop, gonna Snoop. I thought when you talked about this, Peyton's interview was very interesting to me. You definitely saw a very chill vibe from him, and obviously he was very supportive of Cam and all of that. Vashti, did you get a chance to catch a lot of the media extravaganza this week?
I did. Well, I have been keeping up with the festivities. I watched opening night, and it's a show. That's why it always shocks me that people complain about Cam Newton. The NFL is entertainment, and it's a show. And if you're entertaining someone, then you're being spoken about. If you're being spoken about, then you're making money. And I mean, that's just the way that it goes.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I posted some funny moments from the Panthers on my website on Carolina Blitz. So it's just it's quite different than what we're used to when we cover traditional games. Like usually everybody is all serious and the questions are about game strategy and what happened and mistakes and stuff. But Cam Newton is freestyling on the podium or.
I just want you to know, I love Cam, for the record, by the way. I'm a big fan, so I am.
She is, and we're going to talk about the narratives in a minute because I know Jennifer feels the same way I do.
Yeah, Cam is freestyling. You got Miss Universe dabbing. So, I like it. It's good to see kind of a different media environment, something more laid back and fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to segue into we're going to talk about matchups here in a minute, but the Cam versus Peyton, all the get off my lawn hate, and some of the hate toward Cam definitely has racial overtones. Listen, I ain't here to defend them pants. Them pants were awful.
Come on, Sharona.
They were awful. But
fashion statement. Game on to those Versace pants.
Let me say
I like the pants too, Vasti. I like the pants.
But let me say this too. I would totally do what Cam did though. Wear something theme related in terms of the colors and all of that. So I get down with his explanation, but those pants were an atrocity.
Those pants are sold out. Nobody can buy those pants anywhere right now. And by just wearing those leggings, he had every sports show, every news show covering these pants, and he didn't even open his mouth yet. Yeah. To me, that's marketing. Genius. That's marketing genius.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely with that. Jennifer and I talked about this on Twitter not too long ago. The narrative, why, Vashti, let me ask you this, and then I'll get Jennifer to weigh in. Why do you think Cam invokes such strong feelings in people? People either seem to love him or hate him.
Well, I mean, you're right. People either love him or hate him, and the reasons why they hate him are kind of stupid. But as you said, I mean, there are obvious racial undertones in some of the narratives that have been created. Oh, we don't like the way he celebrates. Well, I've seen Aaron Rodgers do some celebration, or Travis Kelce. It's Kelce, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Travis Kelce, he dances, and he actually can dance.
Yes, he can.
And Gronkowski has, Cam goes out to the club. Oh,
Von Miller.
Von Miller. Mm-hmm. Gronkowski goes, oh, he's so cool. I'd love to party with him. So, it's a double standard, and obviously, when you have somebody, to me, Cam is not worried about what people think of him. Yeah. He's fine with being who he is. He's fine with celebrating and embracing himself, even from the day he stopped with the towel. But, he was very emotional from the beginning, whether it's good emotions or bad emotions. And he's been consistent. And he's staying true to himself. And you have to respect a man that stays true to himself, even with, the world upset with him. And some people don't like guys or quarterbacks or I'm going to be candid, some people don't like black men who are overly confident and self-assured, and it can be intimidating to some. And I think that that's what we're seeing in terms of Cam Newton. And hopefully, I think that some people don't want to shy away from the conversation, but I think the conversation is necessary because it exposes things for what they are. And just brushing it under the rug does not help us progress as a country. So
I agree. We got to talk about it. We got to talk about all the reasons behind it. I forget which one of the Panthers said that. It might have actually been Cam. No, it probably wasn't Cam. It might have been Mike Tauber. I forget. Anyway, one of the Panthers said, "Well, if you ain't like it, stop us." And I think
Cam Newton said that.
Yeah, and I think that's the best response to it. You know, if you don't like me celebrating, you stop me.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jennifer, I know you've got some strong feelings. What do you make of all of it?
You know, I feel similar, you know, to Vashti. Really, it's frustrating on my end. Like, as a Bronco fan, like, some of the tweets that I saw, I think it was the night that you and I were bantering about it, people are like, you know, Cam was wearing the pants, you know, and people are like, oh, you know, and they were doing side-by-side, like, pictures of Peyton and him. Like, our quarterback has class. I'm like, what the like, because he wore those pants, he doesn't have. That's the stupidest comment. Like, it's just frustrating, and it makes us look stupid. But that's your take on it. Like, because he wear those pants, he doesn't have class. Like, that's just look. What does someone's wardrobe have anything to do with anything? It's just frustrating, and I think a lot of people, aside from the race situation, I think a lot of people, and I think it might be the older mentality in the NFL, where they expect their quarterbacks to be.
I do have a kitten in here.
That they expect their quarterbacks to be, you know, quiet and the quiet leader, and it's ridiculous. You know, it's really unfounded to me. I don't understand why that mentality is there. I think Cam is awesome. I love what he does, and I think it's the new era of the NFL. You don't have to be a certain way. You don't have to fit in this mold. You can be you, and I think that's awesome. And I love, you know, just the new, you know, and it's interesting because I feel like one of the narratives in the Super Bowl is kind of the old versus the new NFL. You know, when you have Peyton versus Cam, you have kind of the old. You've got, you know, guys like Peyton and Brady, you know, that are kind of the, you know, just the straight pocket passer kind of. And then now you've got the new era. You've got Cam. You've got Russell Wilson. You know, it's kind of the younger new era of the NFL, and I think it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. We're probably not going to have time. I wanted to ask both of you about the Johnny Manziel situation because it harkens back to me and it's weird because, you know, Teddy Bridgewater couldn't be a franchise quarterback because he was quiet, laid back, whereas Johnny Manziel with his money sign, you know, it's ridiculous. But I want to ask you about matchups. We're going to talk about the game matchups. Jennifer, Vashti's already talked a little bit about DeMarcus Ware, Michael Orr, which is obviously a matchup to watch. What other matchups are you interested in, both good and bad, for the Broncos?
You know, I think obviously whoever Josh Norman covers, you know, is something that, you know, is a concern. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked exactly at the matchup and see where he's going to line up. That's a concern, you know, because as we know, Peyton, you know, he can't really. I still cringe every time he throws the ball. I'm not going to lie, you know, and it's going to happen.
Hold my breath.
I do, you know, and so I don't know, you know, we don't know how it's going to go, and so I think if their corners and safeties, you know, I don't know, you know, it's going to be interesting to see there. And then as far as just, you know, like you said, DeMarcus, I'm interested to see kind of what Vaughn can do, you know, against their O-line and see kind of what. You know, because I think the key to this matchup, similar to Brady, is obviously they have to get to Cam. They have to rattle him a bit. It's the only way they're going to win this game. You know,
I think this game's going to be won in the trenches. I do. And, you know, Carolina, their defense doesn't get the attention that, you know, that Denver's does, simply because Denver's having such a fantastic season. But they've got a fierce defense in their own right.
For sure. I'm concerned about it. I'm not going to lie. I am.
Vashti, you talked a little bit about you know, the Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, that. Any other matchups you're interested in, concerned about?
Not really. You know, I'm concerned about the offensive line in general. I'm not really concerned about any matchups on the offense per se. We'll see how Josh Norman does. You know, he gets up for these type of things, and he's finding ways to motivate himself. Individual matchups, those are the two I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about Ware, and I'm concerned about Miller, and I think that those two will be the key for the Broncos if they're able to beat the Panthers. And
Carolina plays. Carolina plays a lot of cover 3, so you're going to see Josh Norman do typically what he does do. I think for Broncos, whoever's going to be utilized in the slot is going to be, kind of an offensive matchup to watch, because as good as Courtney Finnegan and some of the other defensive backs have been, and Roman Harper obviously doing very, very, very well in Carolina. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see. And then the other one that I'm interested in, this kind of ties into what both of you are saying, is how Denver does choose to defend Cam, because he does have that ability to get outside the pocket and make plays. Will they spy him? Will they do what they did with Tom Brady and just get after him? And they didn't blitz Tom Brady. I think they blitzed like maybe 16%, 14%, some ungodly small amount in that game. So I'm curious about how they do that. All right, so we've talked about Cam. Let's talk about possible sleeper picks for the Super Bowl MVP, and then we'll talk about who we think is likely to be the Super Bowl MVP. I'll start with you, Jen.
It's funny. Like I said, I did this podcast last night, and I kind of got into it with the guys because they told me that basically if the Broncos win, it has to be Peyton. And I just don't really see that. And then they went and did research, and it kind of showed that really it's always the quarterback, and that frustrated me. I think, I would like to see, obviously, the defense, because that would mean that they, shut it down and won. So I would love to see, like, someone like Von Miller have, a couple picks and a couple sacks.
Didn't Malcolm Butler win it, though, like 2 years ago? Yeah, I just kind of feel like it could be a defensive player this year. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. They were looking it up for me, and it was like Tom Brady, and then there was a couple. There was like one linebacker, and it just always seems to be, and they were like, well, if Peyton Manning gets at least 2 touchdowns, it's him. And I don't know that I agree with that. But I think I would love to see someone on the defense, just because that would kind of put a bow on the whole year.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Vasti?
I mean, outside of Cam Newton, maybe a Luke Kuechly. If we're talking about defensive players, he's had a phenomenal season. He seems to be able to find the ball, not only just find the ball, but score it as well. Mm-hmm. So if Cam kind of has an game and Kuechly has 2 pick sixes, which is not unfound.
Yeah.
For him, I can see him being, a MVP.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just kind of have a feeling it could possibly be a defensive player this year, but it does typically tend to be a quarterback, and it typically tends to be the winning quarterback. Mm-hmm. So whoever wins this game, the quarterback for that team is probably the odds-on favorite to be the Super Bowl MVP. Prediction time. If you're suspicious, you don't have to give me a score prediction or whatever. Jen, I'll start with you. You want to give me a prediction?
I actually think it's going to be higher scoring than most.
Okay.
I do, because I think both defenses are going to score this game.
Okay. Yeah, would not surprise me.
Yeah, and I think it could be multiple, actually. I'm not sure. But at my score, I have Broncos winning 32-27.
Okay. All right. Vasti?
I don't do scores.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm slightly superstitious, but if the Panthers go in and play their game, I don't think it's going to be – most people think it's going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be
I don't see it's a blowout either way. No way.
I don't see it being a blowout at all. I think it's going to be a very tightly contested game that'll probably come down to the last 1 or 2 series in the fourth quarter to determine the winner. I think that the Panthers, the momentum that they have, the way that Cam is playing, and hopefully they find some way to continue this us against the world narrative to motivate themselves. I think if they continue to play at the level they've been playing, that they'll win.
I've got the Carolina Panthers winning too. Sorry, Jen.
You know what? Everybody does. I'm okay with it. Seriously, everybody does. And you know what? Like Vasti was saying, I mean, I've been worried every single game this season. Every one. I mean, even the Raiders and the Chargers and the division, I've been worried every game, and they end up pulling it out. So I'm not going to say I'm not worried about this game, but I think there's some sort of weird destiny with this Bronco team and with Peyton, and I feel like they're going to win. Like she said, I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way, but I do feel like the Broncos pull it out.
I think it's a great story if Peyton Manning wins this Super Bowl after everything that's happened over the course of the 2015 season. I meant to ask both of you before I give my prediction. There were reports. Peyton denied it. There were denials on this, but there were reports that Peyton had told some close friends that he was going to retire after this game. Do you believe it or not, Jen?
I mean, I just don't know with him. I mean, I think he should, but with him, I just don't know. That competitive edge and that, he lives and dies for this game, and I feel like if they do win, I feel like he's done.
Yeah.
But if they lose, he may. I don't know. Now there's rumors that the Rams want him.
He's not going to the Rams. It's not going to happen. Everybody.
He's not gonna. No, I know. But he's not. He's not going to stay here. They're not going to have him here. So I don't know.
I said this last night. Jeff Fisher's been trying to get in Peyton Manning's pants for years, and Peyton ain't having none of it. It's not going to happen. Vasti, do you think Peyton's going to be done after this year?
I agree exactly with Jennifer. I think that he should, but the greats never know when to walk away. I mean, it's just so hard once you've been the best at your level. You always feel like, oh, I can
get one more in here.
I can still serve these young guys. I'm still, I'm such and such. I'm Michael Jordan. I'm Peyton Manning. So,
the Michael Jordan thing's spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the greats. It's always difficult for them to walk away. Should he walk away? Yes. And I agree completely with Jennifer. If they win, hopefully he rides off into the sunset and says, okay. If they lose, I think that there's always something saying, oh, I want to go out on top. I want to go out on top. So.
Yeah. I think it would be such a great story if Peyton Manning does win this Super Bowl. I have the Panthers winning. I think the Panthers overall are just the better balanced football team. I never count out Peyton, but I have it Panthers 28, Broncos 21. So. All right. Ladies, it was such great fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you guys come back in and tell everybody once again where to find you, find your work, find you on social media, and all of that. And Jennifer, I'll start with you.
I am on Twitter at the Monday Mommy. And
you can follow me on Twitter at Vasti Hurt and check out CarolinaBlitz.com where we cover everything North and South Carolina, pros, college, little sports entertainment. So have some interesting things there, so make sure you go check it out.
I wanted to get some hoops talk from you, but we ran out of time. I hope that we'll be able to sit down and do that podcast really soon and talk about North Carolina and some of the other things that are going on over there.
Got to.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Sports by Sharona. You guys know all of that. That's it for this video chat. Check out the podcast, Back Talk with Sharona.